vibe is real cool. I couldn't help but notice you across the room. Oh, let's follow up with a drink, you know it's on me. Then maybe we can talk a little bit so we can see if this night can lead to you staying with me.
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Ikon. And once again, we're here on 95 South PB. First and foremost, want to thank God for this opportunity, because without him, there would be no us. You know what I'm saying? Secondly, I want to introduce my right-hand man, your baby mama favorite host, Barry White Jr. himself, Jacob the Great. What's going on, fam? You there, Jacob? You there? You there?
Yeah, another blessed day, man. Glad to be in the land of the living. Another day to get it right.
All right, go ahead and introduce this queen. This so we can go ahead and get this thing popping.
Oh man, we have another fantastic guest tonight, man. Miss Sonya Wimberly Hawkins, who is now, you know, in the running for Georgia State Senate,
Yes.
District 16. And welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Feels good to be seen and invited on your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's go ahead and get into it. Who is Sonya Wimberly Hawkins?
Oh, wow. Sonya Wimberly Hawkins is an ordinary citizen who cares about her community. First of all, I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. However, I have been living in Georgia for almost 27 years now. I raised my family here. I've actually lived in Georgia now longer than I ever lived in Chicago. So I guess I'm kind of a Southern girl now. I went to college in Louisiana. And like I said, I'm very passionate about my community. And I decided to get in this race, this Senate race, because I really just got tired of the world around me falling apart. And that's just the bottom line. I have always been engaged civically. I have always done stuff in the community, give backs. In the last 15 years, I've had 3 companies, 2 media companies, and one just a little online store. But with every activation with my media companies, it was always a give back to the community. So I've always been very attached to my community. More recently, now that my children are older, my son is an adult. My daughter graduates from high school next week, and she'll be leaving for college in August. So now I have a little free time so that I can really engage like I want to. I'm an active member of Fayette County Democrats. I'm also a voting member of Democratic Party of Georgia. And one of the things that motivated me to run, besides this administration, this Trump administration running the country like Death Row Records, was
You know.
was I just felt like we weren't putting up a fight. I felt like the Democratic Party, wasn't putting up a fight. And so, everybody is always saying, oh, we should go third party. The reality is, and I'm speaking purely in numbers, there aren't enough of us who, one, are eligible to vote, okay? And 2, we don't make up enough of the population to really make a difference with the third party. We would always be the victim of the majority party, right? And I think we need to have a better understanding of that. In this country, like overall in the world, we're the majority, but in this particular country, we are the minority. And so then you have to take into account those who aren't thinking about us, thinking of the best interest of Black and brown people, or just marginalized groups, or just everyday ordinary citizens. So when you take all of that into account, a third party really isn't an option in that regard. Now, if we can get enough young people that are very diverse in thought, in age, and demographics, that would be different. But that doesn't seem like the plan, which is how we got Trump in the first place. People are upset with the Democratic Party. They feel like we haven't done enough. And so a lot of people, because of what was going on in Palestine and the Sudan and in the Congo, they were like, we're not voting for Kamala Harris, and we're not voting for, because she supports the genocide in Palestine. And they weren't looking at the fact that Trump also supports the genocide in Congo and in Palestine and in Sudan. And they also weren't looking at the fact that charity begins at home. We had a better chance with Kamala Harris than we ever did with Trump. And so a lot of them voted third party or did not vote at all. And that is why we are in the situation that we're in right now. So when I looked at that, and then I looked at my community and how everything trickles down to the little guy, I just got mad. And when I realized that we weren't fighting, I got an email a few months ago, probably, I don't know, October, November of last year. And it was from a PAC, and it was saying, hey, would you be interested in running for your state house? And they said these seats are either vacant or uncontested. And when I looked at the list, my, of course, district wasn't on there, but there were several districts on there. And I said, so you mean to tell me nobody's fighting? Nobody's challenging these seats in the situation that we're in right now with gas prices, with grocery prices, with illness, with medical, that, slashing Medicaid, with just everything that was going on. I said, you mean to tell me nobody's going to fight? Like, not a hard windmill, not a karate kick, nothing. We're just going to let this fly. So I looked at who my senator was, and I researched his background and everything he had done, and I became infuriated. And I said, you know what? I'm going to run. I'm going to challenge the seat. And someone else had the same idea I did. So we're in the primary right now. But that's how I got here. So
Okay. So I'm glad that you are here,
mhm.
and let's talk about you as a young adult in your intermediate years. Was you one that was in your mind that I
Mhm.
always need to be on the front line for my people?
Yes, I have always been that girl. I was my parents' defiant child. And I guess that's the oldest, because I'm the eldest daughter. And I always say the eldest kid is always the test baby. They're going to test the waters. They're going to, by the time you get to the youngest, you're tired. But that eldest kid is always going to give you a run for your money. So I have always been the one that questioned everything, that challenged everything. In fact, in high school, we had a protest and a walkout. I was in ninth grade, and I was on the front page of the Sun-Times newspaper with my fist in the air. You know, I got my butt whooped for that, but I had always been down if I felt like there was an injustice going on. Even when I was at Southern University, David Duke was running against Governor Edwin Edwards at the time, and I was a student at Southern. I was actually a freshman. I had only been there maybe a month or two. And so they had members from his campaign come on, for Governor Edwards' campaign to come on campus to kind of recruit students to say, hey, do you want to go door to door and ask people, do they want to get registered to vote? Or if they were registered to vote, find out if they had a voting plan, if they needed a ride to the polls. And I volunteered. I was like, yes, we can't have the Grand Wizard of the KKK, as governor of Louisiana. So, I had always been about that life, fighting for marginalized groups, not just Black people, not just women, but also LGBTQIA people, Hispanic, Latino people, immigrants. I can't stand a bully. And so I have just always been the person that's going to speak up and stand up to the bully. I'm a shorty, so some people say that's little person syndrome. So I have just always been that person. I'm going to be the vocal one because at the end of the day, I've learned that we are more alike than we are different. And I've learned to look at this system and see it for what it is. And I always tell people, the reason there is a 1% is because they don't want a 2%, they don't want a 5%, they don't want a 29%. They want to keep the 1%, and they want the rest of us to starve. And that's just the truth of the matter. Um, I will never understand why a common man idolizes these billionaires, because the reality is, if you're 45, you're not going to be a billionaire. You're more like me than you are like Donald Trump or Elon Musk or any of those other guys. I've noticed in recent years, and not necessarily in Georgia, but in other states. For instance, I'm going to use in other cities, I'm going to use Chicago and New York as examples. They have new progressive mayors who want to put a head tax. They want to tax the rich and tax these major corporations. And you have poor people and lower middle class people saying, well, no, I'm not going to have a job if you tax the rich. Leave those people alone. And I'm thinking to myself, well, who's going to incur the cost? Are you voluntarily saying that you're willing to pay these extra taxes so that you can keep your job and the wealthy can stay wealthy? I think we have been conditioned to believe that we should work for our government, not just paying taxes, but actually work for our government versus our taxes working for us. And that is backwards to me. If I'm paying taxes, I expect a certain return on investment. So, just speaking globally, or nationally rather, I look at the money that we spend, that we send to places like Israel, um, to fight this war, and I'm talking billions of dollars, and we don't have healthcare. We don't have free healthcare here. We don't have universal healthcare, but they do. Okay. What sense does that make? Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. Our college for a 4-year degree is 6 figures. When I was in school, I think I was paying like $3,700 a semester, maybe even a year. I don't remember now, but I sure enough know it wasn't $100,000 for a 4-year degree. That wasn't Harvard. I don't even think Harvard was that much back then. They go to college for free. And we're sending them billions and billions of dollars. So to me, that does not make sense. It's just nonsensical. So I started questioning things early on, like here in Georgia. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news lately, but there's a data center down the street from my house. I can literally walk to the data center that they just built. It's probably been there. I think they broke ground on it maybe last summer, early part of last fall. It's completely up and running, and they're building another one right behind it. But if you've been watching the news, um, depending on the publication you've looked at or that you've seen, that data center stole 28 million gallons of water. Politico says it's 30 million gallons of water. The water pressure in my community was sucky for all of my neighbors. Now, I didn't have any issues with mine, but everybody in the community began to complain because they're saying, why is our water pressure like this? What's going on? They called the water company, come to find out it was the data center. So this is one of the reasons I jumped in the race too. I was saying, who approved the data center? Nobody knew anything about it. But if you're not going to these community meetings and these county meetings and these board of commissioners meetings and these PSC meetings, then you don't know, because these are the people who are signing off on this crap. And it impacts everything. You know, one of my key things is with this campaign is that policy is personal. And this is what I want all of us, especially Black and Brown people, I want us to understand just how personal policy is. Everything from a street light to a stop sign to how much your water bill is or your gas and electric, all of that is policy. Somebody is signing off on that. So it really matters who you elect to these positions or who you don't elect, right? So when you look at the school board and you're going in the booth to vote, some people don't even go to vote. But if you're going in the booth to vote, you need to know who you're electing to the school board and to the superintendent, because that impacts the value of your house, because your school system really has a bearing on how much your home is worth, the value of your home. And quiet is kept, it actually has an impact on that pipeline to prison, because of what are your schools going to be like? You know, who's in charge of that? So these things are really serious. We like to go in and vote for the president, and we like to vote for. We struggle with the midterm elections, which is what these are coming up. But and the presidency is important, but we don't realize that the president, his most important duty is foreign policy. That's his most important duty. Everything else, you have governors, you have Congress, you have state legislators, your senators, and your state representatives. All of that, all of those people, that's who really has an impact on you. Foreign policy has an impact on you, but definitely your state and local, at the state and local level, that is your lifeline. And so we have to be active, we have to be involved, we have to show up to these meetings. And I'm going to tell you this too, what I've learned since I've been canvassing and talking to people. People are mad, and they're angry. They don't know what to do about it. They don't know who to call, where to look, for different things, like with these data centers that we have going up, because they're popping up everywhere and somebody's getting paid and somebody's signing off on it, right? So they don't know who to call. They're like, I'm gonna call my congressman and blah blah blah. It all starts at the local level, your zoning commission, your public service commission. And if they have those power companies in their back pocket that's donating all this money to their campaigns, and because there are a lot of corporate PACs that have politicians in their back pocket. So if the politician isn't working for you, who are they working for? You see what I'm saying? So, it's a lot of stuff that we don't know because we don't ask questions, and we don't ask questions because we're intimidated by the process. And we have taken civics out of high school and elementary school. So people really are lost. So it's up to us, my generation, because I'm seasoned, but it's up to my generation to educate the next generation of leaders, right? We have to be comfortable enough with getting older and giving up these seats and not holding on to them and guarding them, and then leaving young people with nothing, no knowledge, and they're just winging it. So it's up to my generation to pass the knowledge on to the younger generation and to get them involved. So what I want to say to your listeners today is, don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. They're not smarter than you. They're not. They may speak the King's English, and you may speak AAVE or whatever your language is. They're not smarter than you. You have a voice, and you can make your voice heard. Go to those meetings and ask questions. Don't be intimidated by that. If you're intimidated by paperwork, somebody there can explain it to you. Start going to that stuff. So, your voice is your vote. So,
Okay, okay,
hmm,
okay. So let me say this, and I'm so glad you're on here, right? So
hmm,
I'm reading, because I read a lot. So I'm seeing in the greater Atlanta metropolitan area there
hmm,
are 30 schools closing down,
hmm,
and I'm reading these schools have been closing down because the funds have been mishandled.
hmm,
Because if anybody know anything about the education system, they know that educational grants are millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't like no 2, 3 million. Because I can tell you, my high school,
Mm-hmm.
on 2 years ago, they got a $40 million grant.
Mm-hmm.
Built a new elementary school, built a lot of stuff. So when I hear a city like Atlanta that takes in, that metropolitan area that takes in a boatload of money, and it's 30 schools that's closing down. So this
Mm-hmm.
means that these classrooms are going to have 30 plus kids in them when they migrate to the schools that's already running and staying open. So how are these kids getting the proper knowledge or the proper teaching when you got 30 35 kids in
Mm-hmm.
one classroom? So since you're running for a position in the state of Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that you would do to change the narrative on education?
Well, one, unfortunately, I am unfamiliar with the 30 schools that are closing. That's probably Metro Atlanta. I'm south of Atlanta. I'm in Fayette County. My district is 16, so that's Fayette, Spalding, Pike, and Lamar counties. So Fayette County is ranked number 2 or 3, depending on who you ask or what publication you read. We are ranked 2 or 3 in performance in the entire state. Okay. However, that is not the case with the rest of the county, with the rest of the district, with Spalding, Pike, and Lamar. So that in itself is an issue. There is not an equal distribution of resources for the other schools. And that's something that bothers me because I'm someone who grew up in a public school system. My mother was a public school teacher, actually, my whole family, even my family down here. Um, so I believe that as a state, the funding for the schools should be equal. Um, Having that many children, and believe it or not, I grew up I don't recall ever having less than 35 kids in my class growing up in Chicago public school system. And we did not have a parapro or what did they call them back then? A teacher assistant um, in my school. So, um, hey, yes, go vote, Georgia. um, but I believe that throughout the state, education should be equal, and that is not the the situation, which is why I said it's very important that you pay attention to who your state superintendent is, because in this election, there are people who are running for the state superintendent. And there are some that are really good, and there are some that are, okay. Um, so do your research on who's running and make your choice from there, because that's who is all going to rely on. And also your school board members. Again, this is why voting is important, because they're the ones who are going to make the decisions of who's closing the schools, what schools get what resources. Um, so my suggestion is, and this is for the voters out there, start going to the meetings, make your voice heard, and make your voice heard in the voting booth.
Right, right. So, and the reason I asked about the education system because I definitely have a problem with how the funds have been cut, especially for autistic children. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
people have
and
to realize three out of 6 kids are born autistic nowadays,
yes,
and so
my
if you don't
yeah,
have the proper teachers in those classrooms
hmm
and the
hmm
programs are getting cut
hmm
for autistic
hmm
children,
hmm
I definitely have a problem. And then it seems like nobody is really talking about that in the education system.
Okay, so here is the thing: when Trump got rid of DEI and affirmative action, um, and dismantled the Department of Education, um, that's what's really going to impact special education. One of the issues in Georgia, and not just Georgia, throughout the United States, teachers are just really underpaid. I think Chicago and New York have, maybe Hawaii have the higher paid teachers, but oh, excuse me, when you look at the cost of living, they really don't make a whole lot, right? So one of the things, and they're stripping them too of resources and the things that they need, right? One of the incentives that we should have, one is to raise teacher salaries, right? Because that will attract younger teachers. It'll attract young people who want to teach, who did not necessarily go to school for teaching. My son is a data scientist by trade. He has a master's in data analytics. He is now teaching math because he loves it. And so, and he also teaches special education in a high school out in Henry County. So we need to come up with innovative ways to inspire young people to want to teach. Right now, you have overcrowded classrooms, you have underpaid and overworked teachers. They're not allowed to be as creative as they possibly can. And they just really don't have the funding and the resources that they need to teach in terms of technology or support, or they, feel like they are lacking in support. So that's a major problem, and that's just not in Georgia. That's what I said, Chandra. I'm reading the comments too. During our time, we had 30 plus students and no teacher assistant, whatsoever. And I don't think that's fair to kids. So yes, I think we need to come up with incentives. And one of the incentives that I have come up with was finding a way to pay teachers more to attract young people. Yep.
Okay.
Reading and math
I
scores are
can know.
down.
Can-
And let me say this too. With the children, you mentioned autistic children. My nephew is autistic, and he, graduated high school. He's enrolled in another, I don't want to say college, it's like a technical college that he's in to teach him a skill and a trade. All of those resources, when they dismantled the Department of Education and got rid of DEI and affirmative action, that takes away from special education because that falls under diversity, equity, and inclusion and affirmative action. So everything is connected and everything is tied together. And we need to remember that while we're out here cheering for Trump, he's taking away needed resources from children. And, autism falls under that. Even IEPs, Title I schools, all of that.
Okay. All right. So I got a question. I got a quick curious question, and I'm gonna jump back to some other stuff.
Okay.
So we know we got the soccer tournament coming up next month.
Mhm.
And so just like when the 96 Olympics came, they tried to clean up the crime. So what are they doing this time? I'm pretty sure they're trying to clean up or try to put a mask on the homelessness. Because I know they don't want all the homeless people running around doing this tournament.
Yeah. Well, one thing they're going to have, because they're building the soccer tournament actually in the soccer stadium or whatever it's called, the arena. It's down the street from my house in Trillith. The family that owns Chick-fil-A, the Cathy family, they own this it was called Trillith. It used to be a movie. Well, it still is a movie studio, and they turned it into its own little town. So that is where the training facility and all that stuff is, down on this end, the southern end of Metro Atlanta. So as far as the homelessness, I have no idea what their plan is to get rid of the homelessness, but they are going to bring them to the more affluent area to make it and say, this is Atlanta. It's not, it's Fayette County.
Gotcha.
For the training facility. You see what I'm saying? So it's all marketing. But yeah.
So because I used to live in Clayton County, so I know how bad their school system is. Because my kids graduated from Forest Park, and me and the principal had me and him had a couple of rounds. You know what
Yeah,
I
and how long
mean?
ago was that? Because it was at one point they had lost their accreditation or was getting ready to lose their accreditation, and I had
Yeah.
never seen that before. That was like, what, early mid-2000s?
No, they was about to lose it when my kids was there. And this was between like 17, 8. Cause my son graduated in 19.
Oh,
My
wow.
daughter, yeah. So this was back because I remember when they were in school. Then they kept
Mhm.
saying they might lose their accreditation. Then when they were in high school, so
Wow.
this was like back
This
then. So
That was the
yeah.
second round then, because in the early, like, mid-2000s, they were getting ready to lose their accreditation. It was around the time Atlanta fired all of those hundreds of teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and, um, and I think it was APS and, oh goodness, was it Fulton County? I can't remember. But it was DeKalb, I think, was one of the areas that fired a bunch of teachers, and Clayton too. And when they
Mm-hmm.
began to lose their accreditation, people were just quitting and going, leaving the state, going other places to teach. But yeah, um, that's what I mean when I say that all children deserve a good education, and it should not be a situation of where it's the have and the have nots, and the have the better education and the better school system, and the rest of y'all it's whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, Fayette County is like ranked 2 or 3 depending on who you ask or what publication you read throughout, within the state. But the rest of District 16, they don't have those same bragging rights. Why? We're in the same district.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why can't we fix that? All
Yeah.
kids in Georgia need to have equal opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So let's go back to when you was talking about the Democrats and the Republican Party. And I
mhm,
think what the last election, major election, that everybody was frustrated was the
mhm,
Democrats. It was like we was running a clown show. You know what I mean? It
mhm,
wasn't nobody that was consistent that nobody wanted to vote for. And then before
mhm,
Biden dropped out, it was like the lesser of the two evils. And
mhm,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But
mhm,
in my opinion, in this one situation, I felt like this whole Kamala Harris situation was a setup. They know
mhm,
good and doggone well she ain't have a snowball chance in
mhm.
hell to win an election in 3 months. You know what I'm saying? When these
Right.
people campaigning for 2 years and they expect her to campaign in 3 months and win.
Okay, so let me tell you, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist either, but one thing I know for sure is politics is dirty. There are no friends in politics, right? And nobody has loyalty, like literally nobody. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, right? With Kamala Harris, I believe, and this is just, I'm not a Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi fan. I am just not a fan. I was never a fan. Did not like them under the Obama administration. It's just something about them that comes off as inauthentic, and just really not caring, right? So basically, in my mind, and after reading Kamala's book, she kind of confirmed what I was thinking. Um, it was a let's throw her out there, because we don't want Biden to be president to get a second term, because he said he was going. I don't know if you remember when he ran the first time, he said he wasn't going to run again, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to go one term and then I'm going to turn it over to somebody else. And then the time came and he didn't want to turn it over. So they got all the celebrities speaking out, said, oh, he's old, he's senile. Now, mind you, he and Trump are close in age. It's really not that much difference, right? Um, but the American people are so easily swayed by celebrity and what
Mm-hmm.
the masses are saying. They're not, pulling the veil back, watching what's really going on. So, basically, and this is just my opinion, Nancy and Chuck were like, listen, we'll throw Kamala out there, and if Trump wins, we'll let him have these 4 years, and then we'll take it back over. It was a power struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it back over after she loses. We'll just let him have this, not caring about what was going to happen to the American people. That is just
But
my thought.
can I say this?
Mhm,
Because this is the thing that bothers me with the
mhm,
Democratic Party and
mhm,
whatever. when especially with the Trump now, when Trump gets out of office, maybe he could go back to, I ain't gonna say things as usual, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the Democrat representation was too much of a politician, meaning they would you know how how you get trained to smile on this and do
Mm-hmm.
trained a certain way. Where
Mm-hmm.
Trump was just being authentic, whether you
Yeah.
like him or dislike him, he was
Yeah.
being authentic. And I just felt
That's.
like the politician of the Democratic side was
Mm-hmm.
putting on this fake front of being too clean and too nice and too
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when the
Eh,
people kind of like, you're not
Yeah.
coming off real. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So that has been a complaint about the Democratic Party for a long time. And one of the reasons people liked Jasmine Crockett so much was because she didn't put on any airs. She told it like it was, right? It's why people were attracted to Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she was loud and wild and ignorant and said, you know, whatever, whatever came to her mind. And that's why she was raising millions and millions of dollars, because it, people like authentic people. They're drawn to it. Um, One thing that I can say this Trump administration has taught me is respectability politics is just out the window. There's no such thing. There's no need for it. Like, as African Americans, we walk around and we're always trying to be so, buttoned up and prim and proper. And because we don't want people looking at us a certain way. But I'm looking at who's in the White House and his whole full administration, and it's the hood.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hood on steroids. So it taught me that respectability politics is out the window. People like real, people like authentic. And I don't know how to be any other way other than authentic. I'm gonna tell you what it is. I'm gonna tell you what I think, how I feel about it. And that was one of my critiques with the Democratic Party. We are very play by the rules. Like Michelle Obama said, what did she say? They go low, we go high. Yeah, no, I'm taking it to
Well, let me ask you this question. Let me
hell.
ask you this question before I throw it back over to Jacob again.
Hmm.
One of the things that I looked over the last couple of years is that the black so-called black leaders, like you might
Hmm.
not have, like Jesse Jackson might have had his ways, and Al Sharpton
Hmm.
might have had his ways, but when the rubber hit the road, Al Sharpton was somewhere on that front line helping out,
Hmm.
doing whatever he had to do to try to put kind of light on situation, was it was a George Floyd or Trayvon
Hmm.
or whatever it was, whatever civil
Hmm.
rights thing that was going on, he was there, and Jesse was somewhere close behind. Where I feel like these new black leaders, it's all about being on CNN and Fox and selling a book and putting on the front, but they not really. When it's time to be on the front line, I don't see none of these people. I may be wrong. You tell me. I don't see none of
Well,
them on the front line.
I'm gonna tell you this. One of the people that has been on the front line, two that have been on the front lines have been Tamika Mallory. My son, the general, is someone else.
Okay, yeah,
Trey,
yeah.
yeah, Trey the Truth is another
Mm-hmm.
one, out of Texas. People can't stand Jamal Bryant. Like, they hate Jamal
Oh,
Bryant.
yeah,
They
yeah,
talk
yeah,
so
they
much
do.
smack about him, but he is on the front lines. He's going to tell the
Okay.
truth. We have media giants. People can't stand Roland Martin. They think he's loud and obnoxious. But the reality is, Roland Martin is educated, and he's going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you what's happening. You may not like his delivery, but he's going to tell you, what it
Mm-hmm.
is. So we have those leaders who are on the front lines who really love us and care about us. But the grifters like Stephen A. Smith, grifting from sports into politics
Mm-hmm.
and misogyny on the side,
Mm-hmm.
they're getting more attention because they're more popular. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Even
yeah.
though what they're saying lacks substance. Shannon Sharp is another one. Even though, Arrested Development is what he specializes in. um, he's more popular. His nightcap show is getting
Mm-hmm.
millions of views to talk about stuff that really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get out of the entertainment headspace. I'm somebody who has worked in entertainment, has written, blogged for publication, all these things, right? But there's a time to play and there's a time to be serious. And now is the
Mm-hmm.
time to be serious with our voting rights being under attack all over the South, with these data centers coming up, which popping up all over the South, all over the place. Those are surveillance mechanisms. They are surveilling us. And that's why they're putting them all over the South. Okay. With people's personal data.
Mm-hmm.
There is a time to play and a time to be serious. And this is the time to be serious. We just have to weed out the stupidity.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think before I let Jacob say what, do you think Killer Mike's situation is a distraction, or do you think people have a real valid
We have a
opinion
real
against
valid
what?
yeah, we have a valid the grievance is valid because
Okay.
Killer Mike has a large platform and he was one of the main ones telling people not to vote for Kamala. He was one of the main people who you posed up with Governor Kemp, knowing that he stole the election. If I'm not mistaken, he said some disparaging things about Stacey Abrams when she was running for governor. And so we have to be very careful about who we listen to. We need
Gotcha.
to, everything is right here at your fingertips. And I'm going to say this. I love Mark Lamont Hill, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. Absolutely adore him. I think he's a genius in all the things. However, I'm not taking political tips from him because he's voting for Jill Stein every election. We don't see Jill Stein except every 4 years. She's not on the front lines of anything. She comes out every 4 years, collects her campaign donations, says a couple of speeches, and goes on about her business. She's been doing this for 279 years. But you're throwing your vote away because you couldn't bring yourself to vote for Kamala, knowing that this man, and when he got elected in 2016, we had a whole worldwide pandemic, and he was rolling back protections at the CDC, the FDA, the EPA, all of our protections. He was deregulating. You see what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
we have to stop being lazy and actually start to do the research ourselves. Like Google is free. Chat GPT is free. Like you can really go and look at this stuff and research it and read it yourself to find out, who the best candidates are, what they stand for, what they have done, what they haven't done. I like Lene, is her name Lene Venai or Venezi? She does the parking lot pimping poetry and history lessons and stuff. She did her ballot for Atlanta because she lives in the city of Atlanta, and she said, "I did it so you don't have to do the work." I am appreciative that she did that, but I still want people to do the work. I want them to get a copy of the ballot themselves, and I want them to go to websites, read about these people. I want them to the people who are running for reelection. Like there's a young lady that is in DeKalb County. Her name is Kim somebody. She's the state senator. There's a girl challenging her. There's a young lady challenging her. And the young lady challenging her is calling her out on her mess. You have taken all of this PAC money. Like she's airing her out because they feel like you or Kim has not done what what she should be doing. And they're, of the same party. But the point is that people are not happy. And you have the power, again, your vote is your voice, to say, I'm unhappy with this person that we've chosen. They haven't done their job. Now, I don't know Kim. I don't know her personally, don't know her record, whatever. I'm just saying that she has a challenger who is of the same party who is saying, I don't like the job that you've been doing. We have that right, and we need to start owning that. We need to look at these records of these people, these incumbents who are sitting in the seat, instead of just saying, okay, they're a Democrat like me or they're a Republican just like me. What did they vote for? What bills have they sponsored? What bills have they co-sponsored? What bills did they vote on? My state senator, the man whose seat I want, he's the man who co-sponsored the bill that said you cannot pass out water and snacks in the line, people waiting in those long lines to vote. I don't know if you knew, Kemp took away some voting machines in like the black
Mm-hmm.
districts, and so the
Mm-hmm.
lines were wrapped around the corner. My senator co-sponsored that bill to say you can't give those people water while they're spending hours in line. You can't give them a snack while they're spending hours in line. It's a crime to do that. Why are you doing that? That's to discourage people from voting. That's voter suppression. You
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
We have my senator also voted on that heartbeat bill, where I think it's something like 189 women died because they're anti-abortion. Now, I don't know how someone feels about abortion, but what I do know is that a decision on a woman's body is between her and her doctor. Unless you have a medical degree, you should not have a say in whether or not a woman can get a D&C, after miscarrying. You should not have a say. And if she has an ectopic pregnancy, meaning a tubal pregnancy that can kill her and they have to remove the baby from her tubes, you shouldn't have a say in that. You just shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's between a woman and her doctor. Leave that to the medical professionals. But he signed that heartbeat bill, and 189 women died. And here's the other thing. I don't know if you know the lady who her baby died. It was a stillborn baby or something in her stomach, and they had her hooked to tubes and on life support until they thought the baby would come to terms. Anyway, she died. Do you know how torturous that is for a family to keep a dead woman on life support so that you can use her body as an incubator for a
Yeah,
baby
I heard
that
about
may or may not make? Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
heard about that.
yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
it has gotten ridiculous. Um, Another thing that he did while he's in office, he's restricting library funds. This is dumb because you don't like who the ALA, the American Library Association, elected as president. So you co-sponsored a bill that says if any library in Georgia has an affiliation with the American Library Association, we are going to restrict funding, from them. Why would you do that? Your district, Fayette County, we're okay over here because financially, this is a more affluent area, right? But Spalding County, Pike and Lamar, they have broadband issues. There are children who aren't eating every day. I think it's something like 1 in 5 kids that are missing meals, right? So, why are you taking away resources if these libraries are affiliated with the American Library Association based off of your personal beliefs, your religious beliefs, or whatever your personal beliefs are, right? So there should be a separation of church and state. There just should be, because not everybody is going to believe the same, right? So we have to start looking at these policies. You can go to Ballotpedia and read every single thing that they've sponsored, that they've co-sponsored, whether you agree with that, how that impacts your life, your everyday life. Start looking at your public service commission, because they're the ones who have an impact on your gas and your electric bills, all your utilities and stuff. And if they have Georgia Power in their back pocket, I saw something today on social media. I didn't research it, but they were saying something about Georgia Power using eminent domain or something to build power grids and take people's properties and tear down their homes or something in Coweta County. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't research it. I just saw it floating and people were like, I'm going to call my congressman. I was like, start with your PSC, go to your state rep, and have them put a moratorium, request a moratorium on the data centers, and also this situation with Georgia Power. Like, there are things that we can do. We just need to start at the local level and work our way up to the federal level. But
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on tonight. We're gonna have to do a part 2 of
yes,
this,
yes,
definitely, because I got a lot of questions. Because the one thing, well, we ain't gonna talk about it tonight, but I'm just gonna put this in your head. I don't like the way the polls are set up, where when you go in that poll booth and it be stuck certain things towards, especially towards the end, that I don't think I want to be voting on. And we'll talk about that later. But there's certain things I don't be wanting to vote on. Some of the we'll get into that another time, because
like
we could be there all night.
Yeah.
But I think they need to set up a way where if I don't want to vote on that, I don't want to vote on that. You know what I mean? So especially it had nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? As far as like my community or nothing. This is more of a some of these things like a personal thing. If you might know what I mean by that. But it's a you know what I mean? So I'm that's the thing that throws me off or whatever, because they try to force us to pick a side on certain things, and I'm like, that ain't to me as America. Exactly.
And you don't have to. And you don't have to. You have the option of not voting on that.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on here tonight, giving us your time. Like I said, we definitely got to do it again. Yes. Yeah. Oh, shout out to our sister, Chandra Spicer, for bringing you on. You know, good lady, good queen. So we always appreciate her, like supporting what we doing. We all like support what she doing out there, and whatever we can do to help on our end. You know what I'm saying? We here for you, because it's good to see a good, strong sister like yourself running and trying to go against these old archaic white men that don't, they don't care about nothing but keeping dollars in their pockets and running the country like we still like in the 40s and 50s and stuff. So, but just tell people where they can find you, your website, whatever it is, social medias, all that good stuff.
All right. So you can follow me on Instagram, S Wimberly for Georgia SD 16. So S Wimberly for Georgia or GA SD 16. Okay. Facebook, Campaign to Elect Sonya Wimberly. My website is www.campaigntoelectsonyawimberly.com. If you want to reach me by email, it's campaigntoelectsonyawimberly@gmail.com. And Wimberly
now, when is this particular election? When does this particular election take place?
Tuesday is election day. So today was the last day of early voting, and Tuesday is election day. So I'm claiming victory already. I'm claiming that I am the victor, and I will be running in November against the incumbent. And if I don't, God forbid, the lady who I'm running against, I will support her campaign, because we are in this together. We are sisters in the struggle. And so like it's no.
So this is the vote. This is the vote to see who's going to run against the senator.
Yes, this is the primary.
Gotcha.
See who's going to run against him.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
And but this is for the state senate spot.
Yes.
Gotcha.
For the state senate.
Okay. So that means all of Georgia can vote for you on this.
Yes. Well, they can't vote. All of Georgia can't vote for me. Only District 16. So District 16. So that's Fayette County, Pike, Lamar, and Spalding counties. Those are the ones who can vote for me. So
you talking about this Tuesday, or what you talking about just for this Tuesday?
For this Tuesday. Yep.
Gotcha.
So once I win on Tuesday, then they can vote for me again in November.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, we're gonna be praying that you get it. You know what I'm saying? And so we can continue to support. And like I said, on our end, whatever we need to do, I know I'm pretty sure our sister Chandra gonna let us know if there's anything we can do to help, on whatever to push you through. So, because we got to do something, because this is getting ridiculous. Because I think the gas price is at an all-time high in the South. I travel all over the country. Yeah, I travel all the country. So I go to California and all that. They always been high. But I said we done caught up with them. Like we had $5, they had $5, $6. We done caught up we done caught up with the California. That's crazy.
Listen. When I saw almost $5 when I was putting the gas, because I put 93 in my car, I was like, yeah, we're doing 89 a day, buddy.
I know that's right.
Like, we on 89 a day.
Yeah, I know that's right. But appreciate you coming on. God bless you. And good luck on Tuesday night.
Thank you. Love y'all, and I mean
Love
it.
you too. Love you too.
Vibe is real cool. I couldn't help but notice you across the room.